he would return with a crow and reveal a shocking truth. A rogue intelligence unit from Songland, the Windcrows, is behind the conflict. Sion decides to take responsibility and humbly apologizes to Prince Abel, kneeling in remorse. Abel refuses to condemn Sion and instead emphasizes that true royalty must take responsibility through action, not guilt. Mia realizes his conspiracy mirrors the tragedy of her past life, but instead of seeking vengeance, she chooses to let it go. Or not. Still holding a bit of petty resentment, decides to punish Sion. This punishment leaves a deep impact in which Sion internalizes the lesson, learning the true meaning of justice, mercy, and responsibility, marking a turning point that will shape him into a wiser ruler in the future. The White Moon Palace was an ornate castle that had housed generations of Tearmoon emperors. Even when the whole empire was engulfed in the fires of revolution, it stood strong, its beauty untainted by the flame and soot. The revolutionary army had eventually occupied the palace, their leaders repurposing it as their headquarters. Once the battle ceased and the corrupt nobles were all killed, they planned to revert the extravagant structure to its original function as the administrative nucleus of the nation. Ludwig stepped into the audience chamber. He lowered himself to one knee and bowed his head before the throne. Sitting upon it was the young man who had summoned him. I am humbled by his gracious offer, Your Highness. As a former official of the Empire, it is an honor and a privilege to continue serving the interest of its people, but I implore you to grant me one request. With hollow eyes, he looked up at the young man on the throne, who regarded him with amusement through a few dangling strands of resplendent silver hair. A request, you say? Speak it, then. It is my intention to fulfill it to the best of my ability. I have but one wish, Your Highness. Spare her life, please. A shadow fell across Sion's face. Unfortunately, the execution of Princess Mia is a closed matter. It cannot be revoked. Too much blood has been shed. The people are angry, Ludwig. Angrier than ever at the tyranny of the imperial family and their ilk. If I call off the execution, it will trigger outrage against the revolution's leadership. The Kingdom of Songland could keep a certain degree of uproar in check through military pressure, but doing so would prolong the chaos and further exhaust the empire. Its people would only suffer more. It is imperative that order is brought to the chaos as soon as possible. To that end, the Revolutionary Army needs to be seen as a champion of justice that will redress the corrupt establishment. Therefore, it needs to gain widespread support among the people. The new leader that the people trusted would rise. Under this leader's direction, a new empire would rise from the ashes. That was the easiest script, the smoothest path toward recovery. It was correct, his logic was sound, it was undeniably the fairest decision that could be made. And Ludwig knew it. He knew it far too well. I see. So be it. He shook his head a little, turned, and walked away. It was a gesture of profound disrespect toward a foreign nation's royalty. The guard standing beside Sion almost drew his sword, but Sion motioned for him to stop. He raised his voice slightly and spoke in the direction of Ludwig's residing figure. Will you lend me your strength to rebuild the empire? Prince Sion, you're an ideal ruler. You're wise. You're just. There's no doubt in my mind that you are a man of competence and virtue, unlike that pea-brained princess who, oblivious to the political significance of attending St. Noel Academy, spent her days there paying no attention to the diplomatic consequences of her actions and as a result, earned the affection of not a single soul. Despite having attended school at the same time as the princess of a friendly nation, she forgotten the girl's name and during a diplomatic meeting when the empire needed their help most, did the unthinkable. She looked her schoolmate in the face and asked, who might you be? Yeah, that incident had almost caused him to give up on the bludgeon princess for good. Instead, he swallowed his frustrations and stayed with her. But not before giving her a good scolding. For the love of... Look, if you're going to that school, you have to at least remember the names of the prominent students and their respective nations. Try as he might, however, he couldn't stay angry, especially not after he noticed the notepad she started carrying with her after his skating admonishment. From time to time, he'd find her walking around with it in one hand, muttering to herself, her face scrunched up in concentration. One time, he got close enough to catch a glimpse of what was written. The names of her classmates with their nations of origin, which she kept reciting to herself in an attempt to commit them to memory. From that day on, something in him changed. He saw her differently. She was as foolish and unreliable as ever. But she was trying. Her Highness, she put in an effort. She tried to do better. He paused his steps and turned to study the young man on the throne. Prince Sion was the very picture of virtue. Mia was his enemy, and yet he had the forbearance to seek the assistance of Ludwig, her former vassal. He displayed sound judgment and political acuity. Ludwig's smile, it was a very sad, wry smile. He knew with painful clarity that he couldn't find a better person to serve. No one was more deserving of his devotion than the young man before him. And yet, have you ever been wrong, Prince Sion? Even once. I doubt it, and that's why. He shook his head, leaving his final thoughts unsaid. You'll probably never understand how she felt, and how hard she tried. Doing what is right when the right thing is doable, that was a valuable and laudable trait of a ruler. If given a sum of money they could freely spend, how many people could truly claim to know how to spend it correctly? Silsong Songland was, without a question, the kind of person who would put that money to its best use. It was to his credit, but also to his fortune. There were plenty of times when the right thing could not be done, when the world backs one into a corner, placing them between a rock and a hard place. Even when one wishes to give food to the starving masses, there might be not food to give. The desire to rule with integrity and enrich one's people could be thwarted by the lack of resources or ability. That was the story of his region, a princess who struggled against her fate in the worst of times. When all the world seemed hell-bent on bringing about her ruin, he sighed once more and said to Sion, I cannot imagine you have any need for my strength. Surely, you have no shortage of capable advisors. He knew that it was his sentimentalism talking. Effort and endeavor did not excuse the result. The cold truth was that countless people had lost their lives due to the incompetence of the imperial family and the tyranny of corrupt nobles. The bereaved were left with only empty spaces where their loved ones used to be. No more words, no matter how sincere or logical, could bring back what they lost, nor allay their anguish and fury. But even so, in spite of it all, he felt a deep sorrow at the fact that everything she'd done, all her earnest efforts, would be in vain, never to be recognized. I cannot see myself serving you or Lady Tiona. Goodbye, he said quietly, surprised at the hint of anger simmering in his voice. Then he left. Sion let him go without a pause or penalty. 2 days later, in the grand square of the imperial capital, Mia Luna Tearmoon, princess of the Tearmoon Empire, was put to death. Thenceforth, Ludwig vanished from the stage of history, never to be seen again. I suppose this means Princess Mia was better regarded than I thought, at least by some. The Mia Luna Tearmoon he knew was a selfish girl who abused her authority. She treated the lower nobles she disliked with open disdain and was transparently superficial in all matters, violently uninterested and shallow. She was the daughter of a foolish ruler who undermined his very empire through his disregard for his people. There was nothing about her that could cause even a shred of affection from him, but was there a side of her that I didn't see? The thought came with a brief vision of the Tearmoon princess he used to know. They'd gone to the same school, they'd spoken to each other, and, at his command, they just watched her head part from her body. It was not a good feeling, and it left an ugly feeling in his chest. Not simple sentimentality, but something far more bitter. As time went on, the fall of the Tearmoon Empire proved to be the beginning of a period of chaos for the continent. First, the assassination of Rafina threw the Holy Principality of Beluga into disarray. Next, revolution consumed the kingdom of Remno. The wave of mayhem grew and grew until it swept over even the kingdom of Songland. Faced with numerous wars and internal power struggles, King Sion's circle of capable vassals rallied around him, and they managed to steer Songland through the chaos. It cost them a good chunk of their territory and the lives of many people. But even so, their losses were minimal compared to those of other nations. It was an inarguable display of strong leadership and good government. However, such troubled times proved toxic for ideals, and Sion soon found that a kingdom could not subsist on morals alone. Time and again, he was forced to make hard choices, and those moonless nights when he felt trapped between conscience and reality, he would without a fail recall that fateful date when the sun bled crimson and the guillotine blade fell. I wasn't wrong. I had to. There was no other choice. He would repeat those words to himself, scratching the scab of an old wound that would never heal. He tried to ignore it, pretend it was gone, but it stayed with him, forcing him to endure its persistent itch and ache. In his later years, Sion Songland, the Penal King, had earned the reputation of a righteous ruler, but he would lie on his deathbed alone. That was his life. One of respect but little love, in which his name evoked in his people not the respect of affection and favor, but that of fear and awe. Thus concluded his story in a future yet to come. It was a possibility, one ending amongst many, that Mia launched into the great beyond with a feeble but completely life-altering kick. See it? Seeing his lingering expression of agony, Mia got a little worried. Maybe all that kick in practice had paid off a little too well. Mia, you have my gratitude. Once again, I'm reminded that you truly are the great wisdom of the Empire. Still grimacing, Sion lowered his head and thanked her in earnest tones. He sent a chill up her spine, and she took a step back. Did this guy just thank me for kicking him? What in the moons is happening here? Is he one of them? Those people like Yuna's father who feel happy when they're hurt? Your words have awakened in me something that would surely have lain dormant otherwise. Awakened? Awaken what? What do you mean I'm truly the great wisdom? You don't have to be smart to. Oh, sweet moons. Is it about the strength of the kick? Or the angle? Did he take a liking to how I kick? What if he starts asking me to kick him again and again? She put on a forced smile. Her cheek twitched a few times. Well, then, isn't that just wonderful? Good for you. To her bewilderment, he burst into a bright smile, as though her words had eased some great burden. She slowly averted her gaze, trying very hard not to make any further eye contact. It occurred to her that she might have just made an irreparable mistake, but she threw it into the closet of her mind. The less she thought about it, the better. By the way, about this Chancellor filler, the Sion, was it? Have you figured out where he is? She quickly changed the topic. Leaving problems for later was her modus operandi. Oh, yes. Kidwood, care to explain? According to our information, Lord Donovan is being held captive right under our noses. He's somewhere here in Senia. What? Prince Abel, are you familiar with this town? No. Some of the soldiers might be. Let me ask. Oh, wouldn't it be better to ask Lingsha? You think you can make me do all the work while you watch from the sidelines? Think again, you silly girl. Lingsha? Who's that? The sister of the rebel army leader. I've become quite acquainted with her, as a matter of fact. I see. You did, huh? At that, Abel felt like he already knew what Mia was trying to do. She's hoping to lighten their eventual sentence. He thought back to what Mia had said before. Everyone makes mistakes, so people should be given the chance to make amends. Though they'd been coerced by foreign spies, those who joined the rebel army couldn't go unpunished. The central figures especially would face severe consequences. Under the current circumstances, it was likely to be the death penalty. However, if stripped of their rebel title, these people were little more than common people who fell overburdened by heavy taxes. Mia, who understood that the monarchy was partially accountable for their unrest, probably felt sympathetic toward their plight, hoping to lessen their punishment as much as possible. She was likely giving them a chance to redeem themselves. If they contributed to resolving this conflict when it came time for the trial, they'd be able to present themselves in a more favorable light. If they said they had been tricked by Songland's spies, but had a change of heart halfway through and helped the Remno army toward the sinister plot, knowing my father, it might actually convince him. He knew that the king of Remno was a straightforward man. If Mia were to speak on their behalf as the princess of Tearmoon, it would improve their chances even further. Either way, she's definitely thinking many moves ahead. Abel was awestruck by her foresight. Hidden within the awe, however, was something more tender, comforting warmth from the knowledge that when dealing with those who erred, her profound wisdom was tempered by a deep sympathy for their plight. He was glad that she thought this way, even if at a glance, this aspect of her character wasn't becoming of her status as a ruler. It was, ostensibly, a sentiment more than a little naive. Nevertheless, it endeared her to him more than ever, because he knew that Mia's compassion was always founded on a bedrock of sound pragmatism. Since the girl Linsha lived around here, she would be familiar with local geography. Being connected to the rebel army, she might have knowledge of potential hiding places as well. It made sense to have her act as their guide. Then, there was the matter of the aftermath. The revolutionaries were technically representing the people, and putting their leader to death would cause no small amount of tension. At the very least, it would give factions opposed to the king plenty of fodder for political attacks. But for the kingdom to maintain any semblance of order, an incident like this needed to incur severe punishment. However, a penalty without just cause would send a muddled message to the public and deal a blow to the legitimacy of the current regime. The key words were, of course, without just cause. That was the driving force behind Mia's action. She was trying to give them grounds to make a quarrel more palatable for the powerful, if not obligatory. To do so, she would have to stitch together a complicated web of logical arguments and legal principles. But at the core of it all was a kind-hearted conviction. Mia, you truly are extraordinary. I might be reaching for the moon right now, but one day. Fortunately for him, the day he came to realize the true nature of Mia's kind-hearted conviction was unlikely to ever arrive. Speaking of information though, these Sunlang spine of yours, what were they called? Wingcrows? They sure infiltrated pretty far into a royal army. I wonder who they are. As a matter of fact, the one who sent this information was a maid who goes by the name of Monica Buendia. What? My lord, it's fine. It doesn't matter if they know. I intend to advise father to have all Wingcrows recalled. That left Kidwood with a little more to say. Full-scale withdrawal of the Wingcrows was likely to happen even without Sion's proposal. Neither kingdom wished to fight a war at the moment. Remno lacked the strength, and Songland dreaded the optics. Consequently, meetings would likely be conducted behind closed doors, in which the issue would be settled through some other method such as monetary compensation. It was easy to imagine that the first demand from Remno would be the complete elimination of Songland's spy network within their borders, starting with the expulsion of all Wingcrow agents. As for those directly involved with the conspiracy, diplomatic deliberations would ultimately decide their fate. Besides, knowing Prince Abel, I doubt he'll do anything to her. Am I correct in my assumption? Yes, you can trust me on that much. Still, Monica, huh? So it was her. Abel recalled the face of the maid he'd just seen the other day. I'm no Princess Mia, but the thought that she might face severe penalties doesn't sit well with me either. Which means, Princess Mia, could I perhaps ask for that man to accompany us? I believe he's one of your subjects. Eh? Dion? Normally this would be Bernardo's job, but he's not exactly known for his flexible thinking. For now, I'd rather not tell him that Songland's involved in all of this. I see. Well, I guess he probably won't say no. With slow and clearly reluctant steps, she approached Dion. Well, I mean, since your highness seems to have every intention of going, I sort of have to follow as long as well, don't I? Wait a minute. Oh, see what's happening here? Everybody is expecting me to go, aren't they? Of course they are. When haven't they? I'm starting to see a pattern here. In the end, the squad that set out to rescue Donovan was composed of 6 people. Sion, Abel, Kidwood, Dion, Mia, and Anne. Ludwig went to speak to Lambert and negotiate the immediate dissolution of the rebel army upon Count Donovan's safe return. Fiona, who could handle a sword to some degree, went with him as a safeguard. The idea of having both princes charge into the fray met with some resistance, but the lack of other valuable individuals ultimately decided the issue. Lambert's blue scarves weren't going to let him bring a bunch of soldiers from the Remno army. Conversely, the revolutionaries were neither competent nor trustworthy enough to be a wise option for escort. Mia's group was therefore the best given the circumstances. Honestly, just me would have been enough. But anyway, if things get ugly, I'll just make sure I get the princess and her maid out of there. As for her princely sweetheart, he'll have to cover his own ass. According to the information from Monica, the confinement area was loosely guarded. Jem had only a few combat-trained Wingcrow agents accompany him. Normally, Dion would be disgusted by these numbers. They would need 3 times the opponent to make the fight interesting. But considering the princess was with him, he decided to tone down his usual bravado and proceed a little more cautiously. So, the fighting doesn't really concern me, but just between us. Are you really expecting this to work out? What do you mean? I mean, if you just want me to go in and butcher everyone I see, then I totally understand. But if you're expecting to have the Chancellor back safe and sound, gotta admit, I can really see why they keep him alive for this long. Chancellor Donovan was nothing more than an instrument to trigger the popular revolt. Once he'd served his purpose, there was little merit to letting him leave. I see your point. I, however, believe otherwise. Oh yeah? How come? This is something I was told by Her Highness, but apparently, the leader of the revolutionaries is a man who is, to quote her, a good talker, but seems sort of shallow. Aha. So that's it. Yeah, because there's a reason for them to leave him alive. Anyway, I'll just be casually defending the princess with my life, so you guys make sure to keep these revolutionaries off our backs. This is it for this video. We will continue with the story of the Guillotine Princess on the next episode. This is Marco the Veteran Mexican with Jobless Wings. Matanem!